You are wearing something right now. You probably put it on without thinking. You maybe even grabbed it off the floor or reached for the same thing you wear every single day. And it feels so normal, so completely unremarkable that the question almost sounds stupid. Why do you wear clothes? You already know the answer. Cold, modesty, society. But here's the thing. Every one of those answers is wrong, or at least it is not the real answer. The real answer is far stranger. And it starts not with fabric, not with thread, not even with human hands. It starts with a tiny creature that has been living on your body your entire life. Your body has lice. Not necessarily right now, but your ancestors did. And those lice, dead for hundreds of thousands of years, quietly preserved a secret inside their DNA that no archaeologist could ever dig up. Because clothes do not fossilize, fabric rots, leather disintegrates, thread dissolves. So for most of history, scientists had no idea when humans actually started covering themselves. They had guesses, they had cave paintings, they had needles made of bone, but no one knew the date until a geneticist named Mark Stoneking at the Max Planck Institute decided to ask the lice. Here is what Stoneking understood. Human head lice and human body lice are two different species. Head lice live in your hair. Body lice live in your clothes. They need fabric to survive. They lay their eggs in the fibers. They cannot exist without clothing. So the moment body lice evolved as a separate species from head lice is, almost certainly, the moment humans started wearing clothes. By sequencing the DNA of both species and calculating how long ago they diverged, Stoneking and his team arrived at a number. Roughly 170,000 years ago. Maybe as early as 83,000 years ago, depending on the model. Either way, the answer lands somewhere in the middle of the last ice age, long before any civilization, long before agriculture, long before anything we normally call history. So the cold theory seems right then. It was survival, it was ice, it was necessity, but then you look at where humans actually were 170,000 years ago, and something does not add up. Your ancestors at that time were not scattered across frozen tundra. They were in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, the warmest place on Earth, temperatures that would make you sweat through every layer you own. And they were putting on clothes, not because they were cold, not because a glacier was advancing toward their camp. For some other reason entirely, a reason researchers are still debating. And the most compelling answer they have found is one that has nothing to do with temperature at all. It has to do with parasites. Anthropologist Gillian Tanith Newell and others working in evolutionary biology have built a strong case for what is sometimes called the parasite defense hypothesis. Your skin, bare and exposed, is an open invitation. Ticks, flies, biting insects of every kind. The African savanna is not just hot, it is teeming with creatures that want to feed on your body, lay eggs in your wounds, and transmit diseases that will kill you before you reproduce. Clothing, even loose and rudimentary clothing, is a physical barrier. It is not warmth, it is armor. It is the first technology your ancestors built specifically to protect the surface of their own bodies. Think about what that means. The oldest human invention designed for the body was not a weapon. It was not a tool for hunting. It was a shield against invisible threats. Long before your ancestors understood germ theory, long before anyone had a word for infection, their bodies and their behavior were already solving the problem. But here is where it gets more complicated, because clothing did not stay functional for long, or rather, function was never the only thing it was doing. Researchers studying ancient burial sites across Africa and Europe have found something striking. The earliest ornamental objects, beads made from shells, ochre pigment rubbed into skin, pierced animal teeth worn around the neck, appear at almost exactly the same time as the genetic date for the origin of clothing, roughly 100,000 to 130,000 years ago. Francesco Derrico at the University of Bordeaux has spent decades cataloging these objects, and what he argues is that decoration and covering arrived together, not separately. That the moment humans started wrapping their bodies, they also started marking them, signaling something, communicating something to other humans that words alone could not carry. What were they communicating? The same things you communicate with your clothes today. Who you belong to, what group you are part of, whether you are available, whether you are dangerous, whether you are someone worth trusting or someone to avoid. Your outfit right now is doing all of those things simultaneously. You just do not notice it because the signals have become so familiar that they feel invisible. But 130,000 years ago, those signals were new, radical. They were a technology of identity as much as a technology of protection. And once that technology existed, it did something to human social life that could not be undone. Psychologist Adam Galinsky at Columbia Business School studies what he calls enclothed cognition. The idea is simple and almost unsettling. What you wear changes how you think, not metaphorically, literally. In a series of experiments, people who were given a white lab coat and told it was a doctor's coat performed significantly better on attention and concentration tasks than people given the same coat and told it was a painter's smock. Same coat, different story, different brain. The clothes did not just change how others saw the person, they changed how the person saw themselves. Your ancestors figured this out before language was complex enough to describe it. They discovered that wrapping the body changes the mind that inhabits it, that a person wearing the skin of a lion begins to carry themselves differently. That adornment is not vanity, it is identity engineering. And then the ice came, really came. The glacial maximum, around 20,000 years ago, pushed humans into environments where warmth was no longer optional. And now clothing had a third job, not just parasite defense, not just identity, survival against cold. And this is where the technology exploded. Needles appear in the archaeological record, thread, tailored cuts designed to trap air against the body, multi-layered systems that rival modern thermal gear in their engineering logic. Your ancestors did not stumble into warm clothes by accident. They iterated, they improved. They passed knowledge down across generations and refined it until they could survive in Siberia, in the Arctic, in places that should have been biologically impossible for a tropical primate to inhabit, which is what you are. Underneath everything you are wearing right now, you are a tropical primate. Your body has almost no fur. Your skin is almost completely exposed. You are physically optimized for a warm, humid African environment. And yet humans live at every latitude on Earth. The reason for that is, in part, the thing you are wearing. Clothing is the technology that made human global migration possible. It is the reason your ancestors walked out of Africa and kept walking. It is the reason humans reached Australia 65,000 years ago, crossed into the Americas 15,000 years ago, and eventually planted flags at the South Pole. Every step into a colder world was a step made possible by the ability to carry warmth on the body instead of growing it there. But here is the twist that nobody talks about. Because clothing solved the cold problem so effectively, it also removed the evolutionary pressure to develop natural insulation. Animals that move into cold climates grow thicker fur, thicker skin, more subcutaneous fat. Your ancestors did not. They stayed biologically naked because they did not need to change. The clothes were changing instead. The technology evolved so that the body did not have to, which means clothing did not just protect humans from the environment. It froze them in a particular biological form. It kept you permanently, irreversibly, dependent on external covering. Take away every stitch of fabric from every person alive today, and most of the world's population would not survive a single winter. You did not choose that dependency. It was chosen for you, incrementally, over 170,000 years of ancestors who wrapped themselves in leaves, in bark, in animal skins, in woven grass, in silk and synthetic fiber. Each generation a little more insulated, a little more layered, a little more removed from the bare animal underneath. So the next time you open your closet and stare at it for 3 minutes, trying to decide what to wear, remember what you are actually doing. You are performing an act that is 170,000 years old. You are solving a parasite problem your ancestors faced on the African savanna. You are sending social signals that your brain generates automatically and unconsciously. You are compensating for the fur your lineage stopped growing because your lineage got clever instead. And you are, in some small and very real way, choosing who you are today, because that is what clothes have always done. Long before fashion, long before shame, long before anyone had a word for any of it, you wrapped your body, and in doing so, you told the world and yourself who you were. You are still doing exactly that right now.